Up next on Inside ChampCar, the 14 hours of Atlanta debrief. Welcome to the Inside ChampCar podcast. I'm Brian Bielanski.
And I'm Bill Strong.
Today we rewind and recap the season opener at Road Atlanta. Our guest is Cliff Beisler, the crew chief for the race-winning NLS Racing 1993 Nissan 240SX. We've got a tech tip to talk to you about and a whole bunch more. Good morning, sir.
Good morning from frozen Virginia. Is it cold out where you're at too?
It's going to be 90 today.
Oh, it was like frozen at Road Atlanta. At least this year we didn't have snow. First time in 2 years we have not had snow at that track. And, the Road Atlanta, or is it Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, most beautiful track you ever been to. And that's from a racer's perspective. I absolutely love this track. It's number 1 and 2 on my list, and number 1 and 2 back and forth between that and Sebring.
Wow.
Sebring? Yeah, I like Sebring mainly because it's a track that will beat you up,
right,
your car up, your dog up, everything. But Road Atlanta has everything. The S's, the straightaways, the turns that are really slow, and corners that will scare the gee-weebies out of you, whatever those are.
My favorite tracks are Road Atlanta, Road America, Mid-Ohio, and Laguna Seca is growing on me.
Yeah, the West Coast tracks are a little different.
Yeah.
They seem to be either earlier tracks designed, for racing, that pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah.
Some tweaked, like Willow Springs, and that is pretty much the same since it started. Laguna kind of changed over the years.
Right.
Due to the really fast cars, like GTP cars and such.
Right.
But tracks like Road Atlanta. So I'm going to do that. When we go to Road America, I'm going to call it Road Atlanta. When we go to Road Atlanta, I call it Road America. But that track has pretty much stayed the same, with the exception of turn A and turn B, or turn 10A
right,
and turn 10B. Gravity cavity, I think they call it.
Nice.
That would launch, cars would go in there so fast, go into the bridge and basically take air as they came down that 15-story drop or whatever it is.
Well, no, they would take air before the bridge. It wasn't the part at the bridge.
Okay.
It was at the bottom of the hill before you start going up towards the bridge.
Okay.
And I don't know what was the deal with that, but they lost a couple GTP cars.
They had a bunch of crashes, like really bad crashes.
Yeah, they had a couple of. This was back when the American Le Mans series would be there for the Petite. They had a couple of prototype cars that would basically get air under the nose, and they'd come up and do this beautiful picturesque backflip thing.
Yeah,
which was great until it landed.
yeah. It was so quiet.
Yes, it was gorgeous until it landed. So
yeah,
all right.
But yeah, they changed that and did it really it slowed them down as they went over that bridge. But you still have that, as an amateur racer, you still have that what's the word I want to use? Excretion. Yeah. It's one of those as you come over that hill. And we did a test day with one of my drivers. His mom was standing right beside me, and he'd never been there. Only video game stuff. But when he came out under that bridge, all I heard was holy, let's say crap. What is it? Elevation drop?
Yeah.
And his mom just starts laughing, and
yeah.
we didn't have the headphones on, so it was like open radio. It's like, wow, dude, come on, your mom's standing right here. But it's a big drop, and it can scare you because at the bottom of that drop is a wall. So that played a lot into it this weekend. We didn't have many people into the wall like we had in the past, but we had some close calls down the front straightaway into the grass. Visceral Racing pretty much took the lead from the start and held it all the way. The 959 car. They run two cars, the 918 and the 959. 959 is the new car. 918 is the car that's been around forever. Started his first race, I want to say Summit Point, many, many years ago. Has gone through all kinds of iterations with weight loss and the whole bit. But during the practice session, they they found that the 959 was extremely twitchy. I think that was the word it was used. And it took a lot to drive that car. So they put instead of having the drivers split up in, normally I want to say better drivers, the faster drivers will go into the 918.
Okay.
But because of the twitchiness of this car, and they thought it was better to put the experienced drivers into the 918 and the less experienced in 959. Less experience in 959 and more experience in 918.
Right.
I get that wrong again, but you know what I'm trying to get at.
I got you.
So, but they, and it worked.
Right.
Unfortunately, the car was really, really on edge, and you could see that with their, one of their pro drivers was in the car. The guy's, I want to say a lead engineer at Rivian or some sort of product engineer at Rivian Pickups.
Got it.
The electric truck company. And that guy could wheel, man. I just watching the video from the in-car, just all his hand. We shoot at like 30 frames a second. It might be 60 frames at what, but you could not see his hands most of the time move. It was just insane amount of arm movement. But that's how twitchy that car was. So they led, and then right behind them was kind of, it was running back and forth between I can't think of their name. The Capri. No, the Capri.
Oh, the Capri. Let me see if I can find that here.
I have their name here. So, they finished like 15th or something like that. Freddie Mercury, 18th place.
Oh, yes.
So Freddie Mercury, the Freddie Mercury Capri, really, really fast.
By the way, my favorite team name.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome.
It was so cool. I was like,
don't call it a Mustang. They get really upset.
Well, of course, because then the Freddie Mercury name doesn't work, But when they were first talking about it on the broadcast, I'm like, there's actually a driver named Freddie Mercury. I'm like, that is so cool. And then I realized, no, it's not the driver. It's the dang car. That's so cool.
Right. They and Freddie Mercury, they were in a groove, man, and they were in it, and they knew they had to do an extra stop. But I think with the fuel changes, almost everybody had to do an extra stop, with the exception of the Porsches. And that's how they were able to take that, get a 2-lap lead on everybody. But come down to the wire with an hour to go. Ron, I had done an interview with Ron beforehand, and I'd asked him, I said, how is that car, the twitchiness of it? And he let out that he actually hadn't driven yet.
Okay.
I thought he had earlier, but they had put in their guys in it, and he was going to take the last stint. Well, the last stint at nighttime. And he did a few laps in the car, and you could really see him working it. And he came up over the bridge, hit a black spot or a pavement repair in the brakes, and the car shot right. Yeah, and when it did, it ended up hitting the wall, put it into the wall, was able to get it stopped in a precarious position. And, of course, we're in the tower thinking, who is that? Because I saw, just when I looked over, he'd already come to a stop. All we saw was his headlights. Couldn't really see what it was. And then Paulie switched over to Visceral's camera, and boom, he stopped. That's him. And you could see him trying to move the car. He was stuck in the mud. They were able to pull him out as the 90 or the NLS Racing passed him. And he was able to get it going, but only made it about 150 yards, maybe 200 yards before he realized that the steering on it was really messed up. Mm-hmm. And there was just no way he could move. He pulled it off again, and it took him a little while to get it back up. But we also had Hong North and the Capri tangle. And they weren't happy with each other. Hong North was able to get the car back out. The Capri was not.
Right. Okay.
The Capri dropped down. I want to do a shout out for the, let me see here. For the Garage 65 guys. Those guys were on and on and on about us mentioning their name on the show. They wanted Bob to mention the name. And,
well, of course.
So, Brian, say Garage 65.
Garage 65 was out there this weekend with a great run.
Whoop. And they say silence your phones, right?
There you go. There you go.
So that happened, and then that allowed the Toyota MR2 of Leviathan Motorsports to move up from about 5th place into second place, and they were really worried too. They were really close on fuel, though. When I interviewed them, oh yeah, we got plenty of fuel. But I know that Toyota MR2, and I know they were on fumes.
Sure.
So, but Hong Nor stayed out there, and they were able to get fourth and pass at the end to get fourth. And that car was absolutely on edge as you sat there at turn 12 and they came down. All you heard was tires squeal and hitting the curbing. And there was a couple of points where I swear I got hit in the face with dust right there because he was kicking up so much dirt as he came down there trying to get every ounce out of that car.
So let's talk for a second. I know there were some issues with driving under the yellows, because I know, of course, like all of us, we don't like to go full course yellow in road racing if we can at all avoid it. But there was a point in time where the race director had to make a call.
Yeah, there was it was, I think it's funny, but it's when nothing happens, you think it's funny. You don't think it's funny when they're doing it around the safety folks or whatever. But not only did they're passing under yellows, there was passing under yellows right in front of the tower.
Oh yeah.
Right coming down the hill.
Yeah.
I never saw the flag or whatever. It's like, dude, we've got the flag at the top of the hill. We've got a flag at the start finish line, and you've got a flag at the corner of turn 1 that you're just looking at as you're taking the corner. And you
passed on your second time past that incident.
Yes. They passed, and it wasn't just one or two cars. It was a lot of cars.
Yeah.
And Dana was, I want to say, a millisecond away from black flagging the whole field.
Wow.
And there was he's not taking, he's taking this very serious. I mean, we take it very seriously all the time, but there comes a point when, the track is looking at you going, dude, and you have to do something. I mean, he does anything anyway, but
sure.
And in the past we've done that. He did have us come to Jesus meeting before the race instead of stopping it, thinking that would work. And it kind of did. We still had some issues with folks out there who did spend a lot of time talking to our pit-in folks at Black Flag.
So does ChampCar have the system where they can talk to all of the drivers in their ears at the same time?
No, we wait for them to come down pit lane, and then we punch them in the face and say, "Listen to me."
Okay.
Because we don't have that. That's just an extra cost that I think a lot of folks won't be happy with. What we did do is we did put in the Flagtronics units, which we've discussed in the past. And a lot of folks, this is their first time using it, or it's the first time since they've, with sort of the final iteration, not a beta test, but, and they absolutely loved it. We did have an issue though with it. Somebody programmed the wrong pit in and so when the pit timer wasn't working, Road Atlanta, you have two pits. You have the pro pit and the club pit. We use the outer club pit.
Okay.
And, but the timer would have worked perfect if you'd gone down the pro pit.
I'm sure it would have. have. So 47 cars on the club pit, that's got to be a fairly tight pit lane.
We've done almost 90. And it was on the pro pit, and we've done 100 plus in, the club. Now the club is in multiple tiers,
right?
So you have multiple areas that we can set up cars in. So it's plenty of room on that side. And that's usually why we use that side, because of the space.
So I watched a lot of the coverage, and by the way, you guys did a great job. And I
just sat around a lot, let Paulie and Tiffany and Bob do all the work.
I think the reason it was so good is because I didn't hear you very much.
Yes, that's
there was a lot of Bob Varsha, which is makes my heart warmed.
Yeah, we told Bob he had to earn his money this weekend, so he had to talk more.
That's so good. But yeah, so I watched a lot of the race, and obviously Visceral ran up front, and then I had to walk away for the last hour or two, and I was really surprised when I looked at the results at the end and found them down in 15th or 14th here, and I didn't know what the story was. I didn't have time to go back and look at the stream. So and then of course the boys and gals from NLS came up and was able to grab the win there. And it's always funny. I hear people, because I'm an endurance racing freak, and when the lead car's got a 2-lap or 3-lap lead and it has a problems, they say something like, the first play, the winner stole the race or lucked into it. If you race for 13 and a half hours or 14 hours and are up front, regardless of what happened to anybody who might have been you've earned that win.
Yeah. We had, 3 Racing. They've done pretty well over the years. They don't do a lot of racing with us. People are busy.
Sure.
But they've found themselves in 10th place. Rotary Rocketeers, the 90 Mazda RX-7 did in 9th place. And that car, RX-7s don't traditionally do well unless they have swaps. That car did really well, 9th place. The John Allen Special Mini, that had some pro drivers in it and a bunch of photographers that think they're drivers. And I'm kidding, guys. Ooh. But they're a really good set of guys. They've been racing with us from the very beginning. John Allen Special in that Mini Cooper, 8th place, man. That's pretty awesome. The BMW 325, the Purple Sparkles team, that car did really well too, which is Crank Anchors Racing. Crank Anchors, you don't want to walk by that car, especially if you have a wife when you get home, because they have sparkles and glitter all over that car, and it tends to get on you, and you have to explain why you have glitter when you've been to Atlanta.
I'm glad you've warned me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Team Infinity with their 94 Infinity, the Shark car, finished 6th. He had some serious issues at the start of the race. Transponder wasn't turned on, had a lot of issues with that, and they ended up fighting their way back to a 6th place. When I saw them struggling at the start of the race, they're so far out of this. Nope, there they are on Second Thought Racing in their 91 Miata. They are 5th place. Hong North, again, a lot of adversity with their with a Mercury Capri. Boom, 4th place. And Running Bulls, always there. All Running Bulls, so those guys are so reliable with their E30. Boom, 3rd place. And of course the MR2 in 2nd and NLS in 1st.
So Bill's going to hate me because I have these wild ass ideas in the middle of podcasts, and I say them and then they have to happen because I put them out there. So I think we're going to start a tradition that after every race, we're going to name the team that had a ton of adversity, but still ended up with a great result. So, and then I'll come up with a name for the award.
Okay.
So who would be that team in this race who battled a problem or issues, but still ended up having a great finish?
I think it's got to be Team Infinity.
Okay.
The Shark car is always a crowd favorite, with the kids especially, because it looks, it's got an old Infinity. You look at this thing and, you think, man, there's no way this thing's going to finish. And then, but it's also a car that Ed actually drives that to work every day.
Okay.
In Florida.
Okay.
And he drives it to the track. If the track's close enough, he'll drive it. And he won the Daytona 14-hour last year in that car. So Ed, that was a great way to finish the day, especially with some issues you had. And some of them were self-made issues. And, if you can come back from those, you've done a good time. And we've all done things like that,
All right. The Inside ChampCar Perseverance Award winner.
There you go.
For the Road Atlanta race, the 14 hours of Road Atlanta is going to be Team Infinity, the number 19 car, and finished 6th despite all of the issues that they had throughout the race. Fantastic.
Yep.
All right, so why don't we do this? Let's do the little winner circle interview, and we'll listen to that while Bill was there and talk with the guys from NLS after the race. We'll do that, and then we'll come back and wrap up the segment right after that. This is Winner Circle from Atlanta.
Down here with NLS Racing, you were driving that car, driving the tail off that thing.
Well, we fought with it all day. Caught a break there. Hate to see what happened to the Visceral guys. They really had it, and after that, it was just finish. Saw the fuel light come on about 10 minutes to go, so we make it interesting around here. So just babied it and got it home.
Any other issues towards the end other than the fuel light?
Well, y'all black flagged me. I guess I passed under caution, so we got to go back and look at that. So we kind of took that, and after that had one more lap and just kind of hung on and brought it home. Car was great. Guys did it. Super excited.
So with that MR2 behind you, were you worried at all, or was it just keep ahead of them a certain amount?
Yeah, so we were pacing. Didn't want them to get back on the lead lap and have a caution come out, and have a chance to catch up the field. So yeah, just kind of monitor.
I don't know what happened there. The cold is affecting the batteries. So with that MR2 behind you, did that affect your strategy at all? Did you just stay ahead of him, or did it worry you at all?
Yeah, just getting updates. Didn't want him to get up behind us and get back on the lead lap. At that point, caution comes out, brings him around the field. It would have got interesting. So we were just monitoring. Had plenty of speed left in the car, just mileaging, make sure we got it home.
Cool. You going to go to Disneyland now?
Absolutely not. Been twice. We're good with Disneyland.
There you go. So who are the drivers this weekend?
Gosh. So we got Jeremy Boise here, twice in the car.
The other two aren't here.
The other two aren't here right now.
The other two just quit.
Cliff or crew chief.
So Cliff, the crew chief, man, you looked worried back there, just like the ladies did at AMP.
Yes, I'm a nervous wreck. Our anxiety runs in our family, you could say, but we got it done. I don't know. It never gets any easier. I've been watching Dan win races for 25 years now, and never gets easier, but I can't do it with a better group of guys. I mean, Dan, Corey, my buddy Jeremy, everybody that shows up here. This is just this is awesome.
So you guys had a lot of preparing to do after the disappointments at VIR and a couple other joints.
Yeah, 6 weeks ago, this car, the right front strut tower was pushed in about 4 inches. So we went to work over the Christmas break and got it back together, and I think it's okay, to be honest with you. So the our rental car, our 300ZX, we had to put a motor in it after VIR, and it made it about halfway today, and we puked another one. So we'll have to go back to work on that, see if we can't get a double podium. That's going to be our goal for the year.
Cool. All right, congrats, guys. First place here at Road Atlanta. That's a big one.
Yes, Road Atlanta is a huge one. We've won at AMP twice, Charlotte once, which is a favorite track, but Road Atlanta is just iconic. Everybody around the world knows this track. So.
What's next up?
We'll probably be at VIR in 4 weeks. Yeah.
All right, guys. Congratulations to all you guys, to the whole crew of them.
NLS Racing. The winners of the Michelin Road Atlanta, or Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, 14 hours of Road Atlanta for the ChampCar Endurance Series. They seemed pretty amped up after that thing was over,
man.
Bill.
That whole family, they're a trip to watch on pit lane, man. It's even in the paddock, but they are just pacing back and forth, waiting for that flag to drop. And when you say nervous, they get nervous.
Absolutely.
And they're looking at notes, they're looking at everything. So congratulations to them. They earned that win. They worked hard to get there.
So obviously you never really want to see, well, you do want to see the other team have problems as long as nobody gets hurt. So
right.
When the Visceral car had its issues, were you anywhere near the NLS team on pit road to see what their reactions were?
I was actually down by Freddie Mercury when that happened. So, and then I walked up, I was done with that. And then I walked up to the tower, and that's when I saw them come back. And of course it's, everybody was pitting when Ron pitted at the same time, which in Visceral Racing as NLS. And so it was a fight to see who was leaving pit lane first. Of course, Visceral won that one, but right after that, and I was in the tower. Everybody was like, Bill, why isn't Bill on pit lane? Well, I don't know when this stuff is going to happen.
Of course.
It's like taking a picture of the track. You sit there for an hour waiting for that spin or whatever. Nothing happens. You turn away to walk away, and it's the big one just happened.
Every time. All right, so let's do our tech tip at this point in time. This is maybe the least expensive tech tip we're ever going to talk about.
Yep, and does not include. It's a super simple one, and something I saw this weekend. The dollar notebook.
Yep.
Go to the dollar store, pick yourself up a little notebook and a pencil or a pen. You had mentioned a pencil because the rain won't hurt those. Won't wash away, but take notes of everything. I saw a team, they had some issues last year, and they were talking about, we don't remember what it was, but what we fixed, but I think I remember. And it's one of those things when you have those notebooks, the notes from the last race, and that's something I do when I get home. I put an Excel spreadsheet when I was racing, what happened, where it happened, but I have my little notebook where I wrote it down. And, how much, what the tire pressures were, what the outside temperatures were, what tires I used. Cause sometimes, you forget that I didn't use the Dunlops that race. I they didn't have them in stock or whatever. And I had to get some other tires. So how they performed, my alignment settings, we do different alignments for different tracks. My suspension settings, because some tracks were a little bumpier than others, which shocks did I use? a lot of stuff like that we didn't talk about the old days because you try not to share too much info to give away your performance advantage. But how many wheels stayed on my car? That was always a big thing. Where the wheels broke and what corners they broke in. So I knew that maybe I had a bottoming issue, and that bottoming issue caused the hub to break. And Pittsburgh, that happened to us there on the old track before the repave. Under braking, the car would just sit there on the bump stops and actually on the chassis because I think it pushed the bump stops out. But it's little notes like that you can go back to.
Yep.
And figure out problems or sort out, and everybody at the top of the pack does that.
Yeah.
And
so I'm a crew chief guy. I mean, I love to drive. And if I were to, get to a point where I could never drive again, I'd be fine with that because I love the strategy, the crew chief, that kind of stuff. And so when I'm at the racetrack, I spend a lot of time on pit lane, and I'm always watching, what people are doing. And I had an opportunity to sit down and talk with a crew chief for an IMSA team, and I won't call him out. It's not calling him out, but I'll let the name remain nameless. But one of the things we talked about is he does the exact same thing you said, but he also takes another step. And I said, so do you have a different folder? Because he does everything on the computer. So do you have a different file for each racetrack? He goes, I do. But then I take that file at the end of every, so I have a file for every racetrack, a file for every car, and then I have the big file. So I cut and paste everything into a big notebook of everything I've ever done. Because if I can't remember something about a particular track or a particular car, I can use the find function, and it will scroll through 20 years of notes and find that for me because, we can't always remember everything. And I thought that was brilliant. You know, so he's got a couple different files. He knows exactly how he can find it, and he can get to the information really fast. And, of course, in the middle of a race, sometimes you don't have time to go searching for this stuff.
Right. And that was something that, we've been to tracks where it's like, oh, man, I know we were here 5 years ago and it was just as cold.
Yep.
What were my air pressure settings? Because that worked really well. There was one race where I had, was it Road Atlanta? I forget. It was either Road Atlanta or VIR, where I had everything spot on. I mean, the car handled better than it has ever handled.
Right.
And when I say ever, out of the 100+ races, ever track days or whatever, never did it ever perform like that. And I did not write anything down.
Oh.
I don't even know. I do not even know what my settings were. I may have had a lot of toe in the back, or I may not have. I don't remember. And it was one of those things that, I got home, we pulled everything off, we started fixing things like, oh, I forgot to measure the alignment. And that was one thing that I learned from Riley. When they get, after the race, they get back, they put it up on the rack and measure everything and then take those notes. So just in case something was left out, or if the car handled great at the end of the race, what was that caused that handling? Did it get touched in the back, which caused a little more toe or camber, and maybe that helped the handling. So, you can learn a lot from that.
And you can also learn a lot from knowing what your baseline was at the start of the race.
Yes.
Or as much as possible, because of course you might not have the ability to measure after you got to the track to the start of the race.
Right. But you can measure your suspension settings with a fishing line or string.
Sure.
String, but and some jack stands.
But if you didn't have the time or didn't take the time, at least you know what it was when you got to the track. And if you measure when you got home, you can also kind of get an idea of what happened to the car over 14 hours. And if you had a wildly different toe or something and you didn't get into an incident that would cause it, you could then go, okay, that particular part, something bent, and then you could go back and realize, okay, I got to beef that part up or something.
And you're with your notes, you can go back and say, when you go back there the following year, you can tell your team, if you guys hit that hole at turn 11 at turn 11 again, I'm going to start pulling drivers out of the car because you guys toasted a wheel, you messed up the alignment for everybody else. Which was me, because everybody was hitting that hole except for me. But it was. No, so we have video. We had video proof. Everybody split the cost of the wheels, so it was cheap for them. But it's one of those things that you can go back and look. The notes you can look at. Look at them from last year, the last time you raced it. So that's my tech tip of the day. Super easy. A notebook, $1 at the dollar store, maybe even less, or even just I mean, your kids probably have notebooks left over from
Of course.
from whatever grade they were in last year, because they need something new every year. So
Exactly. All right. Anything else before we get out of this segment?
no, I mean, it was a good race. I really enjoyed it. Lots of action. We were a little low on car count, but that could have been for various reasons. Weather, that huge storm that came through, and the pandemic still going on. I know we had some teams having a hard time finding drivers. So I know that there's a lot of folks out there looking for rides. We have our Arrive and Drive set up, and always email the event director if you're looking for a ride, and he might know somebody that's looking for drivers or crew or something. So there's always ways to find your way in at ChampCar.
There you go. And if you need information about ChampCar, you can always go to champcar.org. Lots of information there, and most of it's good, because Bill,
most of it,
the stuff that Bill didn't do is really good information.
Yes.
The rest of it, not so much, but no. So lots of great stuff there. There's also a list of teams that do Arrive and Drive there. You can go that way, and so there's lots of different ways to get involved. So, all right, that's going to do it for this segment here on Inside ChampCar. When we come back, we're going to go deep dive with the crew chief from NLS Racing, Cliff Beisler. We'll be right back.
Every race weekend, you don't know what's going to happen. But with ChampCar.live, all the action comes right into your living room. The ChampCar Endurance Series is North America's home to real competitive endurance road racing. And ChampCar.live brings you live, full race coverage with in-car, trackside cameras, interviews, and expert commentary. And ChampCar.live brings you live, full race coverage with in-car and trackside cameras, interviews, and expert commentary. Check out ChampCar.live on the web, subscribe, and ring the bell so as not to miss a single minute of the action. It's fun, free, informative, and it's just a click away. ChampCar.live. Come check us out. We bring you a front row seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Welcome back to Inside ChampCar. He's
Bill Strong.
I'm Brian Bielanski. Joining us now, the Road Atlanta race-winning crew chief, Cliff Beisler. I asked him how to pronounce it. He gave me the right information.
I'll still get it wrong.
Yeah, well, I got more time for that, and I probably will at some point in time, so I will apologize ahead of time. He is the crew chief on the NLS Racing Nissan 240SX, car number 97. Nissan or Nissan?
Nissan, and it's 977.
977. Yeah. Okay, there we go.
I see Nissan.
Okay. All right. So I hear there's a huge controversy. Some people think you've got a minivan motor in this car. Other people think you've got a 300 motor in the car. And then I've heard another group of people who thought that you've got the GTP motor from the Jeff Brabham cars in the 1980s in your car. Which is it, or will you just not tell us?
Oh, I'll tell anything anybody ever has to ask. We're very open with what we do. And
but will it be the truth? That's the question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so, Brian Tuttle.
Yeah. No, don't. No. Let's just say I know the Nissan engine families very, very well. The motor that's in our car is from a 96 Nissan Maxima. And that motor is only in the 96 and 97 Nissan Maximas. And they only output about 189 horsepower. They don't have some cooling upgrades Nissan did in the later years and that type of thing. So there's some very distinct ways to tell which Nissan VQ30 you have. So we run the Nissan VQ30 from the 96 Maxima. We have to run the lower oil pan off of the rear wheel drive setup because that car is transversely front wheel drive. So there is some modifications that we have to make and those types of things. And we pay points for all that kind of stuff. And we also use the transmission from a 350Z. So it's the CD009 6-speed transmission, which we pay 25 points for the transmission swap there also. So.
Cool. So you were the race-winning car at Road Atlanta. Let's talk about that real quick. So how was the run? Obviously 14 hours. You must have run pretty well if you won the race. Any issues throughout the day?
Yeah, we had a couple of issues. Road Atlanta is a little bit harder on fuel mileage than most tracks. We're very close to that 2-hour mark, and early on, the motor was running really cool, and I think that was causing us to burn a little bit extra fuel. And so we actually did have to make an extra pit stop. 14-hour race, you try to make it in 6 pit stops typically. And I think that's the schedule Visceral was on, and they definitely probably had us beat. When they spun at the end there, they had us up by 2 laps, and I don't think we were going to catch them. But so we had to make an extra pit stop. But other than that, the car was pretty flawless. We fought some brake pulsation issues. We attribute to possible overcooling. Temps were in the 30s most of the day, so that was one thing we're going to have to look into to figure that out. But pretty much just logged laps at that point, and stayed clean. Not any contact all day long, so that's always a plus.
So with the change in the rules, with the amount of fuel that we can have in the cars, fuel cell cars can only have 2 gallons total, including what's in the fuel fill.
Right.
But stock tanked cars can also have over 2 gallons, but only what's in the fuel fill maximum.
That's exactly right.
Did that affect you this year? I mean, so has that affected you so far?
It did not. And we run a stock tank in our car with the stock filler neck. That's always been the setup we run. We had plans to go to a big, huge filler neck this winter, but ChampCar sort of closed that loophole, as I like to call it, which I think it needed to be cleaned up. There were some teams really taking advantage of it, had their filler necks up in their B-post windows, and that could get dangerous. There's a number of reasons why I think it needed to be cleaned up, but no, that didn't affect us. I heard some other teams, I think Leviathan, it affected them. That cost them a little bit of time. So
that added an extra stop onto them too, just like you.
Yep, exactly. So we've always been very close to that 2-hour mark. Most tracks we can make it, especially if I can get the drivers to keep their foot out of it.
Right.
So
was that a big thing? Was letting off a little early for the corner, stay off the fuel as much as you can.
Absolutely.
With keeping the speed up.
Yeah, and it's everything in endurance racing. To me, every decision I make comes back to 2 things. Is it going to increase? If you increase speed, you're more than likely reducing reliability. So it's always a trade-off between those 2. So we have our shift light set very low, probably 1,000 RPM under what it could go to if they need it at the end of the race. And it gets those guys in the habit of shifting early and trying to coast into corners more and things like that. And these races are way too long to be pushing it every lap 100%.
So are you trying to get your drivers to conserve right from lap 1?
It depends on the track mostly, but at Road Atlanta, once we get up into the top 5 and we think we've got a shot at it, we definitely are going to do that. Unless it's a track where we know we can make it, or it's a shorter race, like a 7 or an 8 hour, there's enough time built into those. And we also play with our strategy, catching a full course caution is key. I think we caught a full course caution, I think our 2nd or 3rd pit stop Saturday. And we didn't even lose a lap by pitting and doing our 5 minutes because the full course caution on their pace car was so long. So that really paid off for us. And in these longer races, you can take advantage of those things. And one thing we always remember is every pit stop 5 minutes. So if you add up 6 pit stops in a day, that's a 30-minute window you've got to play with throughout the race. So we're always working the race backwards. I've got some Excel spreadsheets and stuff that help me with that. But yeah, it's always part of the strategy to save fuel.
So you mentioned that you had some cooling problems with the brakes. Now, I mean, we do this a lot, and never do we think about the brakes not getting hot enough.
Yeah.
So do you have an idea of, is it a different brake rotor combination for another race that might be in the 30s again down the road? Because, I mean, last year at Road Atlanta, you guys had snow. So, it seems as though these early season races, cold weather is not going to be uncommon.
Right.
What are your thoughts on a different possible setup for cold weather races in the brake department?
Well, I've got my pads and rotors off the car, and I'm lucky to be in the Charlotte or North Carolina area somewhat. And I work with Carbotech Brakes a lot. They've always helped us out and are very supportive on their tech knowledge. And he asked me to bring the pads and rotors by, get his opinion on it. But I think it might be possible that we're overcooling. I'm not sure. I mean, Road Atlanta's got some real long straightaways, and if you're pumping, we've got 2-3-inch brake ducts going to our rotors, and if you're pumping in 30-degree air down that whole straightaway, they may or may not be working right. So it may be contributed to overcooling causing pad deposits to build up on the rotor, not so much as a warpage issue, but more of a pad deposit issue. And that's a lot of times what we find with vibrations and endurance racing is it may not necessarily be warping, but pad deposits. So, for VIR coming up here in 3 weeks that we'll be there. We'll probably close up one of our brake ducts just to try to keep the heat in them. We know our pads and brake packets can take the heat because we've run the same setup in the 24-hour and ran the same brakes the whole entire time, and it's fine. And that's in the middle of August. So, yeah, we'll do a little bit. I'm going to go back to try some rotor paint to see which actual temperatures we're running in. VR is kind of tricky because there's no test day, no practice. You show up and your first lap is green flag. So, but we've run that race a bunch, and we think we got a pretty good package going together for there.
Well, and the old trick of, riding the brakes a little bit going into the corner can also help a lot. And if your brakes are going okay for 24 hours in a 14-hour race, doing that probably wouldn't be an issue. So there's another option. But you also have to have drivers who you can train to be able to do that. And then they also have to remember to do that in the heat of the action. So that's also an issue as well. So, So let's talk about this whole ChampCar thing. I am the newbie on the panel here, and I always have the dumb newbie questions. I come with experience in other series, and now I'm learning the ChampCar game. What's the attraction for you to come race ChampCar?
Well, this is our start of our 7th year, and probably 8 or 9 years ago, me and my buddies, we've always been around racing. I grew up racing go-karts as a kid, and that kind of thing. And I actually moved to North Carolina to get in the motorsports industry when I finished high school. So it had always been a passion of mine, and we wanted to get into racing somehow. And we really started looking at everything that's available. I live in Hickory, so we could go race at the famous short track in the world every Saturday night if we wanted to. But when you start breaking down dollar per track time, there's no better series than ChampCar, especially for a group of 4 or 5 people. You know what I mean? We thought about building a late model or a truck late model or something like that. And then you got one driver, he gets 1 practice session, 2 qualifying laps, and a feature race. And you're spending, a ton of money, know? So it really came down to track time versus dollar. And we watched a couple races at VIR, and just absolutely fell in love with it. And then at that point, it was just picking a car and getting to work building the thing.
So why did you pick the 240?
We definitely wanted something rear wheel drive. And we didn't want a Miata, and we didn't want a BMW because that's what everybody has.
Yeah.
So we didn't. Yeah. And it's just one of those things. And funny enough, my dad was a parts manager at a Nissan dealership in Annapolis, Maryland, as I was growing up. And he built, with his buddies, he raced SCCA and the old, the Datsun 240, 260, 280. So I was, at 5-6 years old at Summit Point, West Virginia, watching a field of 60 ITS cars come down to take the green flag. And it was always a Nissan thing there. And, just, I don't know, it seemed like a good way to go. So.
Well, one of my best friends, my best racing buddy, started with a 200 SX. Yep. And then when he rolled that thing over, he decided to rebuild that. So I helped him put a whole new tub together. Then he transferred up to a 240. So I know those cars really well. And there's also an ease of working on those cars. They make sense. Things are where they belong. Pulling a motor out doesn't require the skinniest human being in the world to squeeze the little tiny spot, because I am not the skinniest human being in the world. So, there's just something smart about the way the Nissans are put together, which makes them really good for people who aren't necessarily, master mechanics to work on them. And that also helps as well. So, and I will tell you, I've spent my life racing Hondas mostly, but I fell in love with motorsports because of that Nissan GTP car I talked about earlier. That was one of the first races I went to, and I saw this car and the sound it made, and it was the red, white, and blue, and it was just gorgeous. And so I get the idea of why you would want to go out and race the Nissan. So very, very cool.
So Cliff, race morning, you've been up all night getting things prepped, drinking some beers, whatever. What is the thing as a crew chief you're standing there in pit lane and the cars come down that front straight, what goes through your mind as those cars cross the start finish line?
Start finish line to take the green flag. It's almost a relief when they take the green flag. You know, you've sort of made your bet at that point, and that's something we learned over the years. You need to be confident when they take that green flag that you've done everything you can to take it off. So it's at that point, it's settle in. You know, you start get your computer set up to look at telemetry, and you're starting to think about pit stops and all that kind of stuff. But really, when they take the green flag, if you don't got it, then you're not going to have it at the end. So the work is almost over at that point. You know.
And
I've seen.
Oh, go ahead.
I've seen cars come down and you could see the green flag in the hand and they come down pit lane, and it's just not going to be a good day for those guys.
Yes. Yeah. We've been that car.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And as the crew chief, even if you don't have that confidence, you have to act like you do, because you've got three drivers that are looking at you as the one driver comes down, and you might know that maybe there might be an issue somewhere online because this didn't get done, or we're trying something new this weekend. So you've got to be able to just fake it till you make it, act like you've been there before, and hopefully you get through the 14 hours or whatever the length of the race is without having too many issues. So.
Well, that's something that, you say, hopefully you get through that 14 hours, you look at your drivers, but Cliff, you guys have more than drivers at the track. You have your families. I mean, wives, girlfriends, I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
I don't judge. The wives might, but no. You guys have your families there, which is pretty freaking awesome because, they're a part of it, and they're up there at AMP. You guys were fighting with 901 Motorsports and Visceral, and it was back and forth. And I think it was your sister.
Yes.
Was it your sister? Of course. Yeah. Your sister was up there just bawling. I mean, she couldn't watch, but she turned to watch. Yep. Couldn't watch. I mean, It was pretty awesome. What's that? I mean, how did your family get involved in all this stuff?
Well, as I said, as a kid, my dad was always a big motorsports guy, and started racing go-karts at about 12 or 13. I can't remember the exact year. And my best friend at the time, Corey Danley, is one of our drivers. So we've been friends for over 25 years. And he came to the go-kart track with me. And, my mom and my dad and my sister would come to all the races as a kid. And we had a saying, a family that races together stays together. Yep. And it can't be more true. We have, the team NLS has 5 owners essentially, and all of our wives and our kids, they all love to come to the racetrack. And it's just a family atmosphere. We plan vacations around racing, and, the race is almost secondhand to everyone just being there having a good time. Right. So that saying, a family that races together stays together, can't be more true.
So you said you've got 5 owners. I see on the website that you've got some arrive and drive opportunities. Yep. Let folks know how they can get involved with NLS Racing.
Yeah, we the end of last year we put on a second car. It's a 87 300ZX, so the Z31 platform, and it's our rental car. And if anybody's interested, you go to nlsracing.com. That's our website. There's some links on there that tells about the team, and we'll have some rental opportunities available. I believe we're sold out for VIR coming up here in a couple weeks, and then but the rest of the schedule will have some open time and that type of thing. And that's another thing that's awesome about ChampCar. We took on a second car, and we haven't recouped the complete cost of having that second car yet, but we also haven't really paid out any money out of our pocket. So you can use that rental money to support 2 vehicles if you do it right.
Right. So tell us what your schedule looks like for the rest of the year. You said you're going to VIR. What else do you have coming up?
After VIR, if we get through there cleanly, we're hoping to go to Ozarks and try to compete for the national championship. It's a haul out there for us, and we're a small team on a budget, but we may be able to make it happen. And that's a pretty cool looking track, and it would just be a neat thing to go do. After that, we're definitely doing CMP in June, possibly the 24, depending on how CMP goes. Those races are pretty close together. And then we really ramp up in the fall again, and we'll go back to AMP, VIR North Course, of course. And then we may sprinkle in Barber or something like that. We try to stay in the Southeast. We're very lucky. We've got about 4 or 5 tracks within 5 hours. So that's normally the distance we like to go.
So being a small team, I'm guessing your end of the year plans have a lot to do with how successful you are at not balling up cars early in the season, right?
Well, not just the end of the year, but the next race plans depend on that, and it doesn't normally always come down to money. It's fixing the cars. It's the time, really. Right. We all are full-time blue-collar workers, and we're busting our butts day in, day out to make a living. And then we have families, and we all have kids, and it's hard to find evenings, but we try to piece them together and try to make it work. So, yeah, it really depends on how a race goes as to when we're racing again.
So, Cliff, the Nissan has a really nice contingency program that you're part of. How does that work out for you?
Oh, yeah, that's another reason we stick with Nissan. It's a phenomenal program they have, supporting grassroots motorsports. It's across the industry. Basically, you put Nissan stickers on your car, you register with them, and if you win a race, you get $1,000. And then they pay out for the top 5. And we've taken advantage of it quite a few times, and that always helps. That's a big thing for us. If we can manage to win a race, we about have the next entry fee paid for from Nissan.
There you go. Any other sponsors?
It's a big shout out to them.
Great. Any other sponsors you want to say hi to and give a shout out to before we get wrapped up here?
Yeah, no doubt. So we work a lot with Bollinger Motorsports. I always mess up the pronunciation of it. So big shout out to James. He's always helping us with everything. Carbotech brake pads, we use them a lot. And of course, 9 Lives Wings. We're part of the Wang Gang, and we love that aero that they provide for us.
And Johnny was there this past weekend. Did you get any tips from him?
No, we didn't. He looked kind of busy. He was actually a couple pit stalls up from us. We've got a wing on order for our rental car, and it was it's been a little bit behind, but they're very busy, and we get it. But I was going to bug them about it, and I said, now's not the time. But it shipped out. So they're always very helpful. You know, he's really got some things that are taking off, and he's brought a great wing at an affordable price to our industry. And, we really appreciate that.
Yep.
All right, Bill, you got anything else before we head out here?
That's it, man. Good luck at the next one.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out real quick to the other team owners on the car, Corey Danley and Dan Kohler. The two of us have been best friends since we were kids. My brother-in-law, Corey Brown, who is married to my sister. That's why she's always at the racetrack. And Jeremy Boyce. We've been friends since about 18 years old when we went to a motorsports program at a community college in Hickory, North Carolina. So big shout out to my guys. Couldn't do it without them, and all the families. We couldn't do it without them either.
That's going to do it. Cliff Beisler, I appreciate you being with us on this episode of Inside ChampCar. It's great to talk with you. I'm sure we'll have a chance to catch up here down the road.
Yep. Hopefully we see you again if we win another one.
Very good. We will be back after this break to talk about a little bit about what's up on our next episode. I'm Brian Bielanski. He is Bill Strong. We'll be right back.
Inside ChampCar is a podcast that takes a deep dive into all things going on with the ChampCar Endurance Series. Hosted by veteran journalist, radio host, and racer Brian Bielanski and ChampCar's very own Bill Strong, we talk to drivers, team bosses, tech gurus, and series supporters. Episodes air every week in time for you to listen on your way to the track. Inside ChampCar is on the Racing Wire Podcast Network, found on Apple, Spotify, Google, and most popular podcasting apps.
Welcome back to the Inside ChampCar podcast. I'm Brian Bielanski.
And I'm Bill Strong. I almost forgot who I was.
I know. I've done that before, forgotten who you are. Another great episode, Bill. Cliff's she's just a wealth of information.
Yeah, he's fun to watch work. He's fun to listen to talk, and just having fun out there. And that's, I think we kind of lose that as a lot of these teams progress through the series. They start taking it serious, and it's every little failure just it kills them. You could see it just take a bit out of their life. But Cliff and Corey and all those guys, they are just happy to be there. They're happy to have fun, and they're doing well at it. And they're not, the fun's not going away for them. They've been at it, 7 years now. So, hey, we got the Oak Tree 12-hour at Virginia International Raceway coming up here in a couple of weeks, or 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that.
Call it the No More Oak Tree 12-hour?
Yeah. there is an oak tree there. It's on the outside of the turn now. It's a little
As I
bud,
say, should we call it the oak sapling 12-hour?
Yeah. Oak Tree Junior.
There you go.
And currently we have 23 cars entered, and that climbed up a little bit from what we had the other day. So guys are starting to sign up for it. And I think, again, it's folks are looking at the weather, and also as the pandemic winds down for this round, I think we'll start seeing more teams showing up. Bliss Racing showing up with 2 Camaros. I've raced with them a couple of times. Absolutely fun cars to drive. Sure. I had so much fun at VIR driving their cars. Cool. We have CMP with their Honda Prelude, CMP Racing. Let's see who else. Maximum Effort. They haven't been out in a while, but they're there. And Sparrow Speed is back. Tag Racing. The Stug. The Enterprise is entered. The Enterprise, anybody from the old ChampCar days, the Enterprise is this huge 72 or 73 Ford LTD. I have an image that was taken by one of our photographers at Daytona, and they're in the banking, and the Enterprise is right next to a Miata. And the Miata looked like it could sit in the trunk. That's how little it looked.
I was going to say, you could put 2 Miatas in that LTD.
It is one of the most iconic images of ChampCar or ChampCar, whatever we were at that time, cool. Even now. And because of the size differential and speed differential, that car is so fast. Valerian Steel, I'm thinking Valerian will be right up there for the win with this group so far entered. And Virginia Tech has a school team. They're going to be there with their brand new Focus SVT. They have a new round of students. They run their team, Virginia Tech team, like a Formula SAE team. So this is a senior project. The car gets to stay with them for 2 years for the next round of seniors. And then they have to sell it. And which, if you've noticed, their last Honda they had was up on the state auction block, because it's a state-owned vehicle. Okay. It's Virginia Tech's a state school. And then they bought a Ford Focus. So now they're doing that. And speaking of the Ford Focus, next week we have Bernie Myers, who runs with the Blue Shells team. We'll have him on our show. Bernie is kind of famous as he's a crew chief or head mechanic, and crew chief and a head mechanic for Dale Coyne Racing, which was a IndyCar or Champ. Did they used to call that thing ChampCar?
They did.
I don't know why.
ChampCar.
Yeah. So team. So Bernie will be with us next week, and Bernie has a lot of stories. And I watch him on Facebook, and some of the stories are just incredible. Some of them, you can't really talk about public, but Bernie's such a nice guy, full of information, and a really good car builder.
Is this going to have to be one of those episodes where we do a bonus edition? Because we can't get.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Because I've done that before, where we try to keep these to about an hour. Because I think that's where people's attention spans die. At least that's where mine dies. But I've done episodes where I talk with the guest for an hour and a half, and I just clip that next 45 minutes and put up a second podcast. And if people want that information or that want the rest of that, they can go to that. So maybe we'll end up going longer than we normally do.
Bernie's probably going to be like Chris Huggins when I interview him. Yeah. Maybe. Sure. Those are the best interviews, because I don't think I'm that great of an interviewer, and Chris would do that kind of stuff on me, and I just, how do you pull it out of him? I can't hit him. I can't shake him. I can't push him over the tires.
Goodness.
But how can I get him talking?
Right.
But it's going to be fun. Good show coming up. And I think a good race too in a couple of weeks. But
and that race, I don't think we gave the date. That's going to be March. What is it? 4th and 5th.
Yep. And we have a few things that we do differently than we do at later races. We're going to allow teams to put about 10% of antifreeze in their radiators. It can get cold. We have raced there at 19 degrees. It was the ice storm, our Eastern Championship one time. There were icicles actually on the easy ups, which was just really, it sucked. Headlights are required because this is a 12-hour race, and it does get dark in Virginia in the winter here. Max sound, as always, 96 dB. This is the cars do require mufflers, and CMP has been notified that their Honda has to have a muffler on it.
There we go.
And that's a big joke because he keeps telling me no.
Okay.
They're old NASCAR. That's all Kenny Schrader's team.
Okay.
So those guys don't like mufflers.
Got it.
Kenny may be there. Who knows? I hope so. I like watching Kenny
Absolutely.
race. The Road Atlanta, we had a really good turnout with the guys fixing their stickers as they should have. We had to put the bigger tire rack stickers on the windows. I think maybe 5 teams that didn't do it. They didn't get that email that I sent out to everybody. But we'll be doing that again, making sure that everybody has their proper decals on their cars. We do have contracts, so we have to do that. And then again, if you have the ESS fire bottle, you do have to take that out of your car at Tech and have it weighed every single race. And Flagtronics will be available to rent and for free. And we'd like to have everybody have them. And they're also available to purchase from Flagtronics. And there is no subscription fee for Flagtronics ever. So remember that, guys.
Nice.
Yeah, no fees except for the purchase.
That's March 4th and 5th, the Oak Tree 12-hour at VIR. When does the race start on the 5th?
The race starts cars roll out at 8:30 and 8:40. Cars to grid at 8:30. It roll out at about 8:45. We take a couple of laps and green flag drops at 9, and we run until
that would be 9 o'clock
p.m.
Even I can do that math.
I had to take off my slippers off so I can count my toes.
All right. Anything else before we head out this week, Bill? Good show. Thank you.
Yep. And thank you to you for hosting this. And the feedback from folks at the racetrack was iffy. They're like, man, it's just droning on and on and on about racing. No, they are loving it. And it's pretty awesome to get all the props of the track. I'm getting emails saying great. Most of them have, had 1 or 2 tips, like don't talk so much, that kind of stuff. But me, you got all kinds of props, man. Well. Nah, it's been awesome. And thank you guys. And this is episode 3. And we have how many more to do? 51.
Forever. We're not going to stop at 51. We're going forever. All right. This is the Inside ChampCar. He's Bill Strong. I'm Brian Bielanski, and this is the Racing Wire Podcasting Network.